recorded in history were sulphurs, from Socrates to Einstein, as well as the greatest of the great composers. The world would be a dull place without sulphur's inspiration, optimism, and eccentricity. It's a beautiful introduction, isn't it? The first point that he makes is intellectual inspiration. Intellectual inspiration. The inspired sulphur mind can be as original as it is zealous. Kent, ideas abundant, clearness of mind. Abstract thinking comes easily to sulphur. Kent, philosophical mania. In general, sulphur is more interested in understanding the big picture than in focusing upon a single facet of a subject, which is more typical of callicarb and arsenicum. As I said, callicarb and arsenicum would get lost in details, or they would be focusing on certain details. But sulphur is interested in getting to the bottom of the thing, to identify the common thread, to get the big picture. They are intellectual visionaries, and he's the one who talks about this. Trying to grasp the enormity of the theories of another sulphur, Albert Einstein, is just as difficult for the average mortal, and even the mysteries of the organon and the other works by the founder of homeopathy, Samuel Hahnemann, leave the reader straining to wrap his grey matter around all that abstract theory. He fears that even Einstein and Hahnemann were sulphurs. Carl Jung is somebody he calls a sulphur. Sulphur speaks very quickly when he's excited, and you would see that in me if you have seen my videos. Kent, loquacity, since there is so much he wants to share with the world. The next point after intellectual inspiration is larger than life. The majority of sulphurs are extroverts and are not shy when it comes to expressing themselves. Most sulphurs have a great gift of identifying with and relating to people from all walks of life. They are sociable. Most sulphurs love to talk. Some are highly intellectual. But many will talk to anybody about anything. Sulphur will also lie to get out of a tight corner or to save face, which I don't know if I have, but I certainly try to be as honest as possible. The modern traditionalist, that is the next point. Intellectual inspiration, larger than life. The modern traditionalist. What is a modern traditionalist? The sulphur men have a love for wisdom, attracted to religious and philosophical teachings. Sulphur is proud. They value traditional values like honor, valor, and charity. Sulphur prefers to adopt rather simple basic values such as honesty and non-interference in the affairs of others. That is a modern traditionalist. Arsenicum and some natrums who stick rigidly to these values unlike them, sulphur will bend these values or even ignore them to suit his purposes at the time. Sometimes. Next point is earthiness. Earthy. Some sulphurs are very earthy and not at all intellectual or idealistic. There are these kind of earthy sulphurs also. Majority of them are fiery sulphurs, but here we have an earthy sulphur. Earthy sulfurs are stubborn, selfish, and resemble some brighter carb individuals. Some people who lack the refinement and sophistication of sulfur. Earthy sulfurs are there. But most sulfurs are gifted enough and enterprising enough to find work they enjoy. They are generally willing to supply, providing you have not taken advantage of them. They are generous, but you shouldn't take advantage of them. Ego, selfishness, and lovable rogue. Sulphur is not the most egotistical of types. Platina probably wins that epithet, but it's not far from it. It competes as a constitutional type with Lycopodium and Nux vomica for the biggest ego. So as I said, egotistical and egoistical people, Sulphur, Lycopodium, and Nux vomica. Sulphur believes in himself, allows him to persevere through difficult times. Inventors are very often sulphur people. Even in defeat, sulphur tends to blame his failure on the short-sightedness or the meanness of other people, which happens to me and to many other sulphurs. Some sulphurs will pursue projects that are impractical, but they doggedly hang on to the bitter end, refusing to accept that their judgment was mistaken. Obstinate. They are obstinate. As I said, they would not surrender their point. They would continue to believe. Sulphur's pride leads them to a tendency to boast. It's a subtle boasting than Lycopodium, who just has a fragile ego and is seeking to boost it. We will read Lycopodium also like this. It's an amazing medicine. Sulphur has a spiritual arrogance, denouncing all other spiritual leaders, like Paul, perhaps. Sulphur senses the greatness inside of him that he appears arrogant. It is because sulphur senses the greatness inside of him that he appears arrogant. Unfortunately, some sulphurs sense more greatness than is really there. Foolish pride. Sulphur may take his wife entirely for granted, thinking that he has more important things to do than pick up the children, and when his spouse finally loses her temper, he looks astonished and calls her a foolish, hysterical woman. It didn't happen to me, but I'm saying that sulphur is so much caught up, lives in their head, and is selfish about those particular things that they may overlook other people's needs. Head in the clouds. Irresponsibility is seen in all opportunistic types, Lycopodium, Phosphorus, and Mercurius, but in no other type is it so common as in sulphur. Sulphur is so bright, so warm, and so inspired that there has to be a catch, and the biggest catch is that he is so frequently an impractical dreamer who does what inspires him and neglects the physical and emotional realities of his life. The stereotype of the absent-minded professor is based on the reality of sulphur intellectuals who have a brilliant understanding of their chosen field but cannot remember where they left the car keys. Their neglect for practicalities and the immediate physical aspects of their lives and indifference to external things can in some cases result in the characteristic untidy appearance of the sulphur intellectual, Herring's ragged philosopher. Sulphur is famous for his untidiness. He often pays little regard to material things And that includes the state of his house as well as the state of his body and of his bank balance. Sulphur live in a world where people act from only the highest motives, and they instantly forgive those who act selfishly and cruelly.